Today, I'm going to show you how to make this cute little 3.5 by 4.5 by 1.5 mini album using scraps from my stash. All right, let's get started. So after I've made a mini album, I have scraps left. Some are large scraps, some are smaller, but I do try to use up as many as I can within reason. You know, if I end up having just little ones like that, I'm done. But let me show you a way to make a small mini album. Now this mini album measures 3.5 by 4.5, and this has a 1.5 inch spine. Now you may say, oh, well, that's all well and good, but I can't put 4x6 photos in. You can put a 4x6 photo, but you could do one or two things. You could use a smaller photo printer like a Sprocket, which prints 2x3 photos, or you can print a 4x6 photo and collage different pictures on there. So you could get two 3x4 photos or four 2x3 photos on a 4x6 photo if you collage it. So there's different ways of doing it. So we're going to make this little mini album real quick. So to do that, we'll take a piece of chipboard so that it was 8.5 wide, and I just cut it down to 3.5 and 3.5, and 1.5 was left by 4.5. So I guess I should tell you I cut it to 4.5 first and then cut it down. I'm going to take some 65-pound weight cardstock. I'm not even going to cut this down. I'm just going to use it as is. It's 8.5 by 11, so 5.5 is going to be the middle. I've already put permanent double-sided adhesive. This I use from scrapbook.com. I buy the rolls just because it's very economical and it goes far and it's easy to put on. And I am just eyeballing this, trying to get the center of this piece at the 5.5. And then I'm going to take some more permanent double-sided adhesive and put it one on the top and one on the bottom of the chipboard if I have the paper facing in that direction. And then let's go ahead and use our bone folder and burnish it real well. Now this chipboard is either heavyweight or medium weight chipboard. Now if you wanted to, you could use cereal boxes. I would double them up, maybe glue them together and cut them. I tend not to use cereal boxes or anything like that when I'm making a mini album that I want to be an heirloom, you know, something you keep the photos in. So I removed the backing of this. And by the way, this is a Dress Your Craft #2 bone folder. It's a non-stick bone folder. I like it because it's got this beveled flat edge here. And it sort of comes to a nice little point. And, you know, you can take an emery board or sandpaper and sharpen this. Every once in a while, you might get a little divot in there, and you can take that off with an emery board. And then this is a nice rounded beveled point. So I use all of that. Okay, now that I've peeled off that double-sided adhesive backing, I'm going to peel this off and put this on. So I'm going to overlap my onto this double-sided adhesive just a little bit. So this was 1/4 inch adhesive. So like I say, I'm just going to overlap that a little bit. I don't need a full 1/4 of an inch. And then I'll take this piece and overlap on that adhesive as well. All right. Now I'm going to use my surface and fold just to get the edge of that. And I will grab, I like to use long blade scissors, but you don't have to. And I'm going to cut this at about 1/8 of an inch away from that corner of the chipboard. Just cut all 4 corners off. Now I would rather have too much, more than 1/8 of an inch, than too little, less than 1/8 of an inch. But if you do cut it too short, you just take one of these corners and glue it there. And when you fold this over, you won't see the chipboard. But normally I'll just cross those out. And then you could use double-sided adhesive, put it around the chipboard, put it here, At this point, I'm just going to use glue, and the glue I use, I do put it into this container so it stays easy to use, but it's the Designer Dries Clear adhesive from the Art Glitter Company. Now that glue you cannot purchase or you cannot have shipped if the temperatures are going to go below 40. So I'm putting a bead of glue right next to that chipboard. I'm going to go around the perimeter of this trapezoid and zigzag some glue. I like the Art Glitter glue because you don't need too much. I probably have more than I need on there. And it dries fairly quickly. Okay, so I'm going to take my bone folder and push this right up against the chipboard, and then I'll fold it over and adhere. Now, if glue seeps out, you might want to clean it up. And then we'll do the same for over here. Now, by putting this bead of glue right next to the chipboard, it does a couple of things. First of all, it helps it adhere to the edge of the chipboard, but also it helps wet the fibers of the paper, and it makes it bend a little bit easier. So I'll burnish that right at the edge, sort of go a little bit at the top, folding this over as I burnish, and then with my hand, I just pull it over and burnish. Okay, so now we've got the edge here. So what I'm going to do is take my bone folder and push this down. So I go a motion where I push it down and move it in, just to get that little divot pushed down so it doesn't come out when you fold it. But if you do, I'll show you what we can do. So I'm going to just add a little bit of adhesive there. Take my bone folder, pull it up, and burnish that down. Now, if you were to have just a little divot here, just take it with your bone folder and go around. It's no big deal. You work it a time or two, and eventually it'll be pushed right up against that corner. All right, and zigzag, take my bone folder, burnish, fold it down with my fingers, clean up any excess glue. And then what I like to do is take the edge of my bone folder and go around the edge of my chipboard. Okay, now this is where that nice rounded edge comes into play. I will go a couple of times and push this down a little bit more each time. And what's happening is the adhesive on the underside here will meet with the adhesive on the underside of there, and that will stay down and give you a nice fold. And by using that 1/4 inch tape, it helps to not have cracks. Now, the brand of cardstock I'm using is Recollections. I've used others, and usually, as long as you have enough room between the chipboard pieces, you're not going to get cracking. If they're too close together, you'll get cracking. This is further apart than a lot of people use, but I don't have any cracking, so that's how I do it. All right, so there is our little cover. Now we're going to make the hinge. So the hinge is the system that we use to put the pages on, and it looks like this when we're all said and done. There's 4 hinges with a 3/8 of an inch space, we'll call that a gusset, in between each of those hinges. The hinges are 1/2 an inch tall. Grab a piece of cardstock, that same 65-pound, that is 3 7/8. Our pages are going to be 4 1/4. Actually, this could have been 4 1/8. I cut it too short, but that's okay. I'm going to go with it. By 8 1/2. So we just take an 8 1/2 piece of cardstock and cut it down to 4 1/4. All right, now I'm going to score starting at 2, and we're going to do 2 1/2 inch pieces. That'll be one of the hinges. 2, 2 1/2, 3. All right, so that's one hinge. Now we'll do the gusset, so that's 3 3/8. Now let's do another hinge. So 3 7/8, 4 and, I'm sorry, yeah, 3 7/8, 4 3/8. That's another hinge and another gusset will bring us to 4 3/4. 5 1/4, 5 3/4, 6 1/8, 6 5/8, 7 1/8. And that's it for our 4 hinges and 3 gussets. So what I'm going to do now is turn this over so the bumpy side's facing up. And I'm going to fold this in between each of those 1/2 inch hinges. So you have that first score line, second score line, third, folded at that second score line. And when you fold it, line up the sides. Make sure they're lined up nicely and burnish, just that. Then we're going to skip a line, and fold. And do that 2 more times. Skip, skip, fold. And skip, skip, fold. All right, now we're going to have the bumpy side facing down. I'm going to pull this towards me, and when you do, you'll see that that area that you burnished is going to stick up. I'm going to grab that in my fingers and fold it back and forth a little bit, just sort of finger burnish it. Pull that towards me and you'll get another mountain forming. Let's burnish that a little bit. And then same with the other. You can fold on those score lines down at the bottom. Keep that gusset flat on the table. So now we've got our 4 hinges. Now, they're not glued, so they're not permanent yet, but we're going to take care of that. I'm going to take some glue and starting about 1/4 inch away from the edge of the paper, just on one side of the hinge, zigzag a little. Then I'm going to take one bead of glue and go to the top. I'll turn it over and squeeze that together and finger burnish it. Just move back and forth. If you get glue coming out of the ends, clean it up and clean it off your fingers. We'll do the same for the next one. Zigzag and a bead of glue. Squeeze it together and burnish. Zigzag and a line. And one more time. I started too close to the edge there, so I have to be careful that it's not going to seep out, which it did. Okay, now I'm going to take my bone folder and burnish all 4 hinges and then fold them away from me and burnish. So that's how we get our hinges. I'm going to use this one because it doesn't have the writing, but I could just erase that if I wanted to. All right, so now we have that. I'm going to take my book, and you notice I'm not going to cover the covers. It's okay that the chipboard's showing. So I will take glue and put a bead down each intersection between those, between the gussets, and then zigzag. Again, don't go right up to the edge if you can help it. You want a reasonable amount of glue, but you don't want some that's coming out. All right, and now I will take this and place it here. I'm not going to push it down until I'm comfortable with where it is. So we've got about a little more than 1/8 of an inch between this hinge and where the spine piece ends, and about 1/4 of an inch from the bottom of the page to the bottom of the hinge, and a little bit more on the top. But that looks good to me. Now, if you want to be sure, lift up one of these wings and make sure that this area that's showing is parallel all the way down. You still have a chance to move it while that glue is wet. But now that it's where I want it to be, I'm going to take my finger and in that center gusset, I'll just burnish that from the top to the middle and then from the bottom to the middle. Then I'll move this hinge over and the whole thing moves over. Did you see that? The whole thing moves over and I'll burnish that. Now I'll move that back in place and move the one to the right and burnish. And then I'll move that in place, and then the one to the far left and burnish. Stand that up, that one, and then the one to the far right. Then I'll go ahead and burnish because it looks good, nice and straight to me. stand those hinges up, lift this wing up, and then let's adhere the rest of it. So I'll put some glue here, some glue on this side, a little glue in that channel, and then around the edge, and burnish. Now we did have a little glue coming out at the top. And I'll go back and forth in that channel, distribute the glue, and then burnish here. Now I could work this a little bit more, and I will, but not right now. I'll turn this over and do the same with this side. Right in the channel, a little bit on this side of the channel, and around here, zigzag a little, burnish that right next to the hinge. Be careful you don't use your pointed tip. You don't want to make a hole in it. We'll gently burnish, a little teeny glue popping up. Go back and forth several times. In the center where there's the chipboard showing, that's where the adhesive will, the double-sided permanent adhesive will meet with that. And there we go. Now I'm going to let this dry the way it is while we make the pages. And then when I come back, I'm going to burnish it again and close the book so it folds nicely. But we can put this aside for now. All right, we're going to make two different page styles. We're going to make two pages with a side-loading hidden pocket and two pages that have pockets in it. I'll show you what we're doing. So we'll take a piece that's 3 1/4 by 8 1/2. The pages are going to be 4 1/4 by 3 1/4. So we'll take two of those, 3 1/4 by 8 1/2, put it with the 8 1/2 side at the top, and score at 4 1/4. I'm going to do that with this one as well. And fold this. Now this paper, by the way, I don't know if you can see, but there's a little less than 1/8 of an inch showing. I'm going to cut that down because sometimes you get this inexpensive paper. It's not quite true. This is not 8 1/2 inches long. It's probably 8 9/16. I don't know, just a little bit over 8 1/2. So I'll cut that just to make sure it's true. Let's go ahead and grab another piece of paper, 8 1/2 by 11 piece of paper, and we are going to make pocket pages. So this is 8 1/2 by 11. I'm going to first take off 1 inch, so we have 7 1/2 by 11. They want you to save this one piece. Okay, 7 1/2 by 11. Now let's cut this so it's 5 1/2. Okay, so you should get two pieces that are 5 1/2. I'm sorry, 5 1/2 by 7 1/2. Let's grab the scoreboard. And with the 5 1/2 inch side at the top, we're going to score it at 1/2 an inch. Three and 3/4, and it's 7. Now I'm going to rotate it one time and score it at 4 1/4. So you've got a long rectangle, a good size rectangle, and another long one, short rectangle, and then two smaller rectangles and a tiny one. We're going to trim this. I'll show you what it's going to look like when it's done. It's going to look like this. So we'll have wings at the bottom, but we'll trim those long rectangles, long skinny ones at each side. So again, I'll grab my long blade scissors, use what you have, and you could even put it back in your trimmer. All right, you can see the X created by that score line here, this teeny little one, the smallest one. I'm going to cut it an angle right up to that intersection. And then I'm going to cut right on the score line. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but right up to where that piece intersected. So there's one. I'm going to turn it over and do the same with this side, right up to that intersection, and then cut off this long, skinny piece. And like I say, you can put this in your paper trimmer and cut it off that way. It just seems to be easier for me to do it with scissors when I'm showing you, because the paper trimmer sort of gets in the way. All right, let's burnish this. Let's fold in the center. We'll open it up again. We'll fold here. We'll fold this and burnish. And then what I'm going to do is add some glue to these little tabs on the bottom. Fold this up, and that's going to create a pocket page. I'm going to fold it in half, make sure everything's lined up, make sure everything's straight, and there we go. So we're going to make 2 of those, and then we're going to grab these, and with that long piece that we had when we cut the 8.5 by 11 paper down to 7.5 by 11, I'm going to cut this to 3 1/4, and we'll cut another one to 3 1/4. We'll use those 2 pieces, grab my scoreboard, and with the 1-inch side at the top, I'm going to score that at 1/2 inch, and I'll do the same for this one. And while I'm cutting, I'm going to cut this to make this 4 1/4. Cut off that excess. See, there was that much excess. Oops. All right, so we have these 2 pieces and these pieces. I'm going to fold and burnish on the score line. And then I'm going to trim. So here's the folded line. I'm going to cut from the open to the folded line. Turn it over and do the same here. So you get 2 little triangles. Well, 4. Do the same with this one. Now, I could have cut a piece that's 9 inches, 9 1/8, but I'm just making use of the paper I have. Now, what I'm going to do is add glue to one side of this tab, take it, and put it right up against our little folded piece. This is on the open side. The folded side is here. And then add more glue to this tab. Fold that over and burnish. We'll do the same with this one. Now you could put this little tab on the inside, but I know we're going to cover it up with paper, and that way when you put things inside this hidden pocket, it won't get hung up on there, because all the workings would be on the outside. So we have 2 tubes that we've just made, and we've got 2 pocket pages. Once I glue this down. Now, if you wanted to, you could just make the tube. Whoops. Yeah, no, that's right. You could just make the tube pages and add pockets to it. But this just makes good use of paper. But you could do it however you want. And you could make just these 2 pages and add flaps to it, add extra side flaps. You could do a lot with it. But since this is a small little book, I'm just going to stick with the 2 pocket pages and 2 pages. And I'll grab the book, and I'm going to start with a 2 page. I'm going to dry fit it. Now there's more than enough room because I made the hinge a little bit too small. But am I going to worry about it? Nope. If I didn't tell you, you wouldn't notice. So I'll put glue on both sides of that hinge, keeping it up towards the top of the hinge, not going all the way down. And then I'll put my page on and keeping about 1/8 of an inch gap between the bottom of the book. So this piece doesn't touch the bottom of the book. And I'll burnish that, making sure the side is parallel with the bottom and this is parallel with that side. Okay, now I'm going to do one of these pocket pages. To do that, I'll add glue to one side of this hinge, again keeping it towards the top. I like to zigzag it. Then I'll take a bead of glue and go about 1/4 inch on the bottom. Then I'll hold this, push this up against it, pull it back just a little bit, and push this hinge down. I'm making sure this is aligned with that last page we put in. And then I'll burnish, add glue here, and put that in and burnish. Again, I'm about 1/8 of an inch away from the bottom of the hinge. All right, now I'll do another 2 page. I'll add glue to both sides of the hinge. Make sure it's lined up with the bottom of our other pages. I have to back it off because I'm too close to the hinge. And burnish. And last one we'll do is the pocket page again. And you could do it in any order. Oops, I put glue on both sides. Now I'll put glue along the bottom here. Put this up next to it, make sure it's lined up with the other pages, and then fold this down and burnish. All right, I'll start at the back and burnish these pages in real well. Okay, now you need a couple. Oh, now I'll take my bone folder and again work this because we didn't close this. We'll do that, work this, and close it. So there we go. We've got 4 pages in our book. We've got pocket page here, pocket page there. This is just a plain page, but it's got a side loading pocket. Here's another pocket page, which happens to be a top loading pocket, and then another side loading pocket. So now we will need to grab some of our scraps. Now, I've already cut some in different measurements. So for the front and back outside covers, you will need pieces of cardstock that are 4 3/8 by 3 3/8. And I've just cut some of this green polka dot, 4 3/8 by 3 3/8. I like really small matte margins. I'll put one on the front, one on the back, and I also made one that is 1 3/8 by 4 3/8 for the outside spine. Oh, I probably could have made it a little bit bigger, but that's okay. All right, so there's our front and back covers and our spine. I'm going to fast forward through decorating the pages, but grab a pencil and let me give you all of the measurements for what you'll need. So to cover the inside and outside covers, you'll need a piece of pattern paper that's 3 3/8 by 4 3/8. So you'll need 4 of those. The pages, since the pages are 3 1/4 by 4 1/4, you'll need to cut pattern paper 3 1/8 by 4 1/8. I really like small mat margins, small margins. So you'll need to cut one of those for each of the uh, solid pages, and then you'll have 4 pocket pages. So for each of those, you can cut 3 1/8 by at least 3 1/4, but no more than 4 1/8 long. And to cover the outside pockets, it's 3 1/8 by 1 1/8. The cut aparts, I cut down to 2 3/4 by 3 3/4 and added those onto 3 by 4 cardstock, but you could just use the cut aparts 3 by 4 and don't add them to cardstock if you want. Hidden pocket pages are 3 by 4, so the pattern paper was 2 3/4 by 3 3/4. See, for some reason, I make my mat margins on these a little bit bigger. The tags, the cardstock was 2 5/8 by 4 1/4, and the pattern paper was 2 1/2 by 4 1/8. So go ahead and cut all of those and decorate. You can look through the walkthrough in just a little bit and follow my patterns. Really, it was random. I just grabbed the paper I had and just put it on there and covered with what I had. Double check the measurements because, like on some of the pockets, I noticed it was bigger than 2 1/4, so my paper, for some reason, might have been a little bit bigger. Anyhow, that's how to cover the pages with pattern paper. And you see, in some cases, I rounded the corners of those cut aparts. I just thought it added a nice touch. And I'm going through my stash, picking up the rest of the paper I had, bigger pieces. This that you see, the rainbow and the brown, I'm going to use to do the hidden photo mats, which I've already given you the measurements. So I'll do 2 with the rainbow showing front and back, and then 2 with the brown cardstock showing front and back. And that takes care of the hidden pocket pages. Don't forget, we had 2 hidden pocket pages and 2 pages that were open at the top, um, where I'm going to add a tag. So we'll do that in a second. I'm working on the cover, so I just decided just to make it simple and take that bundle of joy cut apart. So here I'm taking this paper and it was about 8 inches. So I'm cutting it into 2 equal pieces. Now I'm using this plastic guide. This I got from Scrapping Under the Influence. It's just a tag cutter. It just I just stink at cutting tags. I never make them straight. So I like having this. I mean, I do have dies that I could cut the tag, but I have to get out the die cutting machine. Everything's sort of put away right now. So anyhow, that's what I'm doing. I will give you a hint. If you do get that, I like to use a mechanical pencil with the lead being a little bit longer to get into that little tag shape thing. All right, final thing is going around and embellishing. So I'm taking some of the stickers and just adding them in. Some I am putting on uh, cardstock to just to strengthen it and just in case it goes a little bit over the pocket. And I'm just adding a couple of things to the cover and the spine. And there we go. All right, so we've got Bundle of Joy. You know what I think I'll do is go through and add some glossy accents onto those. That's what I'll do, is just add glossy accents just to raise that up. And then that gives you room for a photo. You can put a photo on the back of here or in the pocket. Photo on the back of here, photo there. Photo in the side loading pocket and the top loading pocket. Photo there, photo on the back, or you could even put one on the front if you wanted to. Photo on the top loading pocket. Photo on the back. Photo there. Photo here. Photo or journal here. Photo there. And there we go. A quick 3.5 by 4.5 mini album. just using leftovers from my collection. That's what I wanted to show you today. Thank you so much for watching. Have a fabulous day.